Hey, my name is Jake, and for about 6 years, I was indoctrinated into a cult. Before we get into anything, I'm gonna apologize for looking at my screen a lot. I haven't recorded a video in a long time, and this is a new channel, so it's a little different than I normally do. So if you see me looking up, I'm just trying to stay on track, because I get off topic very easily. But we'll get right into this. So, before I get into the actual cult, I would like to talk about my upbringing a little bit. I'll be quick, I know. I grew up in a small town, medium-sized town in South Jersey of about 25,000 people. And it wasn't bad. It's relatively unassuming, but it's not exactly the safest town either. We live in the poorest county in New Jersey, Cumberland County, and it's kind of just, New Jersey's one of the most expensive states to live in, so it's, we were lower middle class at the best, but obviously we're doing better now. I'll skip a lot of unimportant stuff. You don't need to know every minute of me growing up. But my mom raised me and my two other brothers as a single parent until she met my stepdad. My parents originally divorced when I was about 4 years old in 2009, I believe. But she was raising 3 kids at the beginning and end of the 2008 financial crisis, which is not an easy feat, and I respect my mom for it, despite our issues. We never grew up particularly religious, which is ironic considering where we are now. But we did attend for about a year a small Methodist church, and it wasn't my thing. I don't have anything against Christianity, it's just not for me. And eventually, like I said, my mom met my stepdad, and things got a little better. There's 2 sources of income, and we moved to a better street, not too far away from where we grew up. On and off for years, we had bi-weekly visitation with our father. He was not a good man. Our father was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, and in some cases, very bluntly, sexually abusive to my older sibling. He would always portray himself as a good man to the outside world. We'd go home with welts and bruises from the belt and wires and whatever else he could hit us with. And that left at least me, I'm not sure about my 2 siblings, it left me with lifelong self-esteem issues and depression, which I'm still dealing with today. Obviously, lifelong. And like I said, there were accusations that my older sibling made against my father of sexual abuse. This, from my understanding, revolved mostly around being forced to watch pornography as a 10-year-old, or however old they were. And that's disgusting. We were never able to quite prove it, but after everything we went through, I don't doubt it in the slightest. We dealt with it for years, and about July of 2016, or maybe 2017, I don't know, I was 11 or 12. We had enough, and I helped my older sibling call Child Protective Services. They came and picked us up, and that was the last we saw of them, besides a few run-ins throughout our life, because, medium-sized town and all. And we'll skip forward now a few years till 2015. We know how everybody loves 2015. Now, what happened in 2015? The 2016 election's coming up with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And, as a chronically online child with unrestricted internet access, I quickly stumbled upon what they called independent news. So we're talking the gateway to far-right ideology. These were not the unbiased sources that they came off to be. I'm pretty sure my first real exposure to alt-right media was with Owen Schroyer of InfoWars. I only really watched his personal channel, which is essentially still InfoWars. I never got into InfoWars itself, but directly after Owen Schroyer, I got into everyone's favorite alt-right influencer. And this man was known as Steven Crowder. Everyone's favorite, the man now known for emotionally abusing his pregnant wife. I can't say whether it was physical or not. I only saw the emotional abuse parts. Either way, I never got into Ben Shapiro. I can gladly say I don't care for Ben Shapiro. I never did. But I think my biggest appeal for the alt-right rabbit hole was I was able to learn things that allowed me to mock the kids who bullied me. As a overweight child, I was bullied a lot, and I feel like I was able to at least push back a little bit. I don't know. Besides the problematic beliefs, the main issue was I just started saying things to piss people off for the hell of it. I like to get the reaction out of people, and I believe that also stems from me being bullied by my siblings for the same reason. They would just say things to get my reaction out of it. I was a very emotionally sensitive kid with, let's call it anger issues. Much better now, though. Surprisingly, I never got into any racist or homophobic ideas, and I don't know why. I'm very glad, don't get me wrong, but it's very easy to go down that pipeline in this alt-right pipeline. I 100% used dog whistles that I weren't quite aware were dog whistles, because that's a term I only recently, as of a couple years ago, learned. And when I used them, it was completely unknowingly. And at the very worst, I didn't realize how harmful they were. By the end of 2016, I had become nearly fully wrapped up in the alt-right idea. Trump was officially elected the 45th president of the United States. And boy, was I happy. Or was I? Looking back, I can almost certainly say this is where my depression started. Or at least where my near adult, my adolescent depression started. Where I was at least conscious of being sad. Didn't write this in my script, but looking back now, as I'm going through another mental health crisis, I went to therapy as a young child for my depression, and I was in my school banging my head against brick walls. It was crazy. I don't know why. That's what I did. So I've been depressed my entire life. We'll just go with that. I got so into this hateful mindset that I couldn't even recognize how sad and full of anxiety I was. And I brought these ideas into my friend groups, my family, and so many other groups that I was a part of. And I surrounded myself with people who would make the same jokes that I was. And don't get me wrong, I love dark, morbid humor, you know. Comedy is supposed to break barriers. But some things don't need to be said. Some things shouldn't be joked about. The issue is when these jokes become more than jokes. Like, personally, I'm not gonna get offended at every Jew joke, white joke, fat joke thrown my way. I'm not even Jewish, I just attend a synagogue. And if that's Jewish to you, then to each their own. Technically, it's not. I'm not gonna get into the nuance of it. But if it's no longer a joke, you're supposed to call that shit out. Because then at that point, you're just making fun of somebody. And if that other person isn't having it, that's not okay. But we'll go back to me in school. This friend group I had specifically would bounce off each other more and more and more. You know, one joke would turn into this joke and then back, forth, until you're all the way at the extreme. And it got to a point where I eventually just started seeing this friend group as these ideas. And I couldn't leave it because these were the people that I surrounded myself with. If I left this group, I wouldn't have another friend group. Besides a few apolitical and politically left-leaning friends, I could be normal around, sorry, I'm readjusting, that I could be normal around and maybe debate a little bit with, you know, debate, if you want to call it that, if you're a middle schooler who has no idea what you're talking about. This isn't in the script either, but there was times in school when I was in this right pipeline where I would just yell in the gym class, Trump rigged the election. He had won. What was I talking? I don't know. I can't tell you. I was an idiot. And one of my friends was a girl, an apolitical girl, who I've been going to school with since 3rd grade. And when I moved from the street I was on with my mom to the street with my stepfather, I changed schools. And in this new school, a girl had just started as well. And we became like real friends halfway through 6th grade. And we ended up part of a friend group. That's how we kind of got more talking. We were in a friend group of these weird like outcast kids. Like no particular rhyme or reason to why these people hung out. They kind of just were. They were quiet, quirky, if you will. And one kid that was kind of popular, but he had a broken wrist. He immediately left after he got his cast cut off. Dick. He was a dick. Flat out. I helped him with his math homework. He never said thank you, never talked to me after. And I was there helping him with his math homework every week. Whatever. So from 6th to 8th grade, I was fully bought in. Until that friend group dissolved. It kind of happened after that kid left. I think he might have been like the glue. I think everyone kind of just stuck to the popular kid's hip. I don't know. We kind of went our own ways besides that one girl and me. We kept talking. I don't think she really cared to talk, but you know, I'm weird, and that was the only friend that I really felt comfortable talking to from that group afterwards. And I think that's when I started to realize I wasn't very happy. I had fewer things to distract me from it, and I started to feel more, just overall feelings. And, you know, I don't believe I mentioned it in the script. I'm going off script a lot. But I was raised in a family where you kind of don't talk about your feelings. And I never had a crush before. I was 15 years old and I had never had a crush. And I remember one starting to develop in 8th grade with that one friend from the specific group, Allison. That is my girlfriend, and we've been together in August. We'll make 5 years. And my other friend, Trio, who were the only other, and they were my only friends outside of this friend group. Those two and Allison, and they were not mutual friends. I was friends with Allison and I was friends with these two kids, but they weren't friends with each other. I'll use fake names for these guys because I don't want to dox anybody. It was me, a kid we're gonna call PF, and JD. And we'll get into PF first. PF was a huge World War II nerd. He thought Nazi salutes were funny. He would collect gas masks, model tanks and planes, and a few other things. And, you know, at the time, I would laugh at the Nazi salutes. You know, edgy 2016 humor is kind of just what was popular. And my other friend, JD, was a huge history nerd overall. He was very obsessed with, specifically, the Pacific Theater in World War II. So these three people, Allison, JD, and PF, were my only friends, really, throughout middle school. All of us, besides PF, decided to apply to a vocational high school, and we all got in, except, you know, since PF didn't, he didn't go. And by the 9th grade, it was just down to me, Allison, and JD. And Allison and JD, like I said, weren't friends themselves, but we'd all talk together when we were together. You know, when you have that friend that only talks to the other friend when you're there, but if you left, they don't talk at all. It was like that. And we made a few more friends at the vocational school, but none of them are particularly relevant to this story. So I'm not going to really talk about them. But I'm going to just say, if I was 100% on the alt-right train in 6th and 7th grade, I would say I was about 85% there by 8th grade. And by the start of 9th, I would say maybe 70%. Arbitrary numbers, I could not tell you exactly. It has been years. But that's when the pandemic hit. COVID-19. We got sent home for virtual schooling in March, and according to the government, we'd be back in 2 weeks. We all know how that went. Clearly, it didn't happen. We spent the rest of our freshman year at home, ending the year in June. I think I passed most of my classes. I did not attend any Zoom meetings, nor did I do very much schoolwork when we left, but I did pass that grade. I think I passed most of my classes with C's and C minuses. I'm gonna be straight up, I didn't do any work. But we'll go back to December. I think December was one of my biggest catalysts for my escape, if you want, from this cult. And that's when I told Allison that I liked her. Yes, I just turned 15, so this was 2019, December of 2019, going into 2020. So December 24th, I told her on Christmas Eve. It was super cringe. I don't know why. It was so awkward. I was a socially awkward 15-year-old telling the only girl he talks to that he likes her on Christmas Eve. She did not respond until the next day, and I kid you not, she said, "Sorry, was at my cousin's for a Christmas party, but I guess you could say I like you too." Ugh. Oh, I should have backed off, but I don't pick up social cues well. So, now we like each other. We aren't dating at this point. Somehow it worked out. Spoilers, and we're still together. So in January of 2020, I believe, just after her birthday, it might have been like the 13th or something, 14th, we had our first, what she refers to as outing. And nothing past that until July 4th, 2020. So nearly 7 months of just talking like occasionally over text. And that's when I met her family for an Independence Day celebration. You know, 4th of July, God bless America and all. And again, nothing until August. Now this is August 31st, 2020. And we had just gone on an outing to a nature preserve not far from where I lived at the time. And after that, I said, hey, I hate to be blunt. This is paraphrasing. It was a whole thing. But what are we? And we kind of just decided, let's just start officially dating. I know I'm going off track a little bit, but Allison says I should explain exactly why I liked her. And I've always had trouble putting my feelings into words. Yeah, I'm not great at articulating things. As you can see by this video so far, I kind of go on ramblings. I'll try. She was a fun friend for a few years, and we both had a similar sense of humor. It was easy to be myself around her. I didn't really think about politics when I would talk to her. And I never really thought of it as anything more, just, you know, a friend. She's gonna kill me, but I'm gonna rat her out real quick. She would wear cat ears every day until one day in 8th grade for some reason. I don't know why she did it, it was just something she did. And once she took them off, I don't know what it was, but it was like those old teen movies where the girl would like do her hair and take off her glasses, and suddenly something... I had feelings for her, suddenly. I couldn't tell you. I'm only a man. And I don't know if it was related or not, but the two events being so close together, it's possible it was just a coincidence that it was aligning with the cat ear thing. I don't know. So I just dealt with those feelings and awkwardness for just over a year before I told her, but we'll get back into school now. We had our sophomore year completely virtually. Now this was 2020 into 2021, if I'm not mistaken. I'll just be completely honest. I would join the Zooms 90% of the time, but I would just tell them my camera didn't work. And I would either keep sleeping while I was in the class, or I would play Minecraft the entire time. And I think that's because 2020 and 2021 were huge for Minecraft. That might have been when the PewDiePie series started. But I played Minecraft my entire life. I just got back into it a little bit. And I'd cheat on my classes out of pure laziness. No one was monitoring me, so I thought I could just do it. And somehow, while cheating, I scraped low B's, or B's and A's. In one class, my Algebra 2 class, I got a D on. I cheated and got a D. But we'll go back into politics. I was slowly losing my interest in politics. And then the 2020 election happened and Joe Biden won, and that revamped it. I remember distinctly posting something on Instagram where it was like that, the Simpsons meme, where he goes, haha, I'm in danger. Don't get me wrong, I don't like old people in office, but if you had to objectively rate Joe Biden and Donald Trump, it's clear who was better. Yeah. And by that point, I was only about 60% on this alt-right train. The pipeline was falling apart. And I felt like we were so screwed when Joe Biden won. I couldn't explain why. I was just a brainwashed child. But yeah, and other than the first few months of 2021 when I was still kind of watching alt-right stuff here and there, I kept moving further and further away from it. And then we get to June of 2021, and this is a big month. By then I'd nearly fully fallen off the pipeline. I no longer cared about politics. In fact, I was moving left, and I feel like I was no longer brainwashed at this point, or at least not fully. And I was still coming to terms with being a decent person, where I didn't judge everyone for every little thing, because that's what I was told to do. And I would just smile and nod when conservative talking points came up, It was stuff I had heard and spouted off most times myself, so I knew a lot of it was just straight bullshit. And I would just lightly shoot down liberal ones, but substantially less so now. And at the end of June, specifically June 29th, 2021, it was a big day. I came out to Allison as bisexual. And this was absolutely the biggest turning point for me. I was coming to terms with the internalized homophobia despite me not actually pushing any out. You still have that internalized, especially growing up in a time where Modern Warfare 2 lobbies were what they were. And this was just taught to me as someone, like I said, it was raised in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and it was difficult to get over that. Our junior year, of high school wasn't anything special. We went back in person, and it sucked. I don't think anything notable happened, so I'm just gonna move on. The time between starting dating and coming out was spent with us going between each other's houses and getting closer to each other, but that was kind of it. Eventually, it became easier as we both got our own cars. You know, we could drive more, especially we don't have to wait for our parents to do anything. And I was so proud that I bought my first car on my own with my own money that I made working my own job. It's very normal to want to be independent from your parents, especially with parents like mine. But after the political split, it was even more so wanting to be independent. And that split was growing bigger and bigger by the day, and I started to struggle with my mental health more and more. And Allison started to struggle with hers around the same time, and it was hard. You know, two people struggling with mental health at the same time. But we made it through. We're still both here, so. And it's not my place to go into detail on her issues, so I'm not going to. But I'll say this about mine. Living with two homophobic, racist, transphobic parents as a queer liberal, if you will, is hard. I wouldn't call myself a liberal, but you know, that's what I was always called, because left equals liberal, despite liberal being a right-wing idea. But either way, especially when you're told growing up that men have to be a certain way, and I'll say that I love my parents, but they haven't been the same people who raised me in a long time. They were always a bit weird, you know. My mom would always say men are supposed to act a certain way, women are supposed to act a certain way, which is sexist, but never explicitly like racist or homophobic. In fact, my mom's best friend for a while was a gay man that we called Aunt Jimmy. That's what he wanted to be called. To clarify, he would introduce himself as Aunt Jimmy. So don't hate me for that. And during my struggles with mental health, I wished that I didn't have to be here anymore. But I always made sure I was for Allison and my family. Coming out from that, I feel like we've become stronger in our relationships and lives because of it. And we both still have our own struggles, but we're addressing those even to this day. And while writing this, I didn't realize that I'd forgotten a ton of specifics about the period I'm talking about. Like, for example, how young I was indoctrinated into this, like 10, 11, 12 years old. In politics, that's fucking-sane. Yeah. So I do plan on doing different videos on different topics that are kind of related, or kind of just about me, as they come up. So you'll hear more about that stuff there. And otherwise, I'll start skipping forward to start wrapping this up. I had it enough, and it seemed my parents did too, because I was officially kicked out on November 27th, 2024. Just over a year after starting my first full-time job. I'd started my first full-time job November 6th, 2023. And I had 30 days to gather my shit and go. And if I didn't, according to them, they would turn off the electric in my room, which would essentially kill my fish and reptiles. That's a wild thing to do, but okay. So I told them that I had receipts for everything, you know, and that I'd send them a bill if any damages were caused, because this is property, regardless of emotional. It is still just property overall. And so I'd written evidence of me telling them I will pay rent and them saying they do not want rent. I crossed my T's and dotted my I's. And no matter how many times I was told I lived there for free and couldn't complain, they would never let me pay rent so I could have a little more freedom in my 9x9 bedroom. And, you know, I wasn't really sure how to defend myself should I have needed to, but it's what I had, so maybe it wasn't legally sound, but it was better than nothing. And that same day, I started moving my stuff over to Allison's, and we are in the process of finishing what we called the addition. It was a addition added to her parents' house, and it was just plain drywall and not even floor. There wasn't floors. There was just the standard MDF particle, whatever it was. And that's what you're actually seeing in here now. This is the addition. It is nearly completely done, except for, I don't know, back there you can kind of see that door. That's the unfinished bathroom, so we still have to go into the main house for the bathroom. Off topic, and like I said, that day I started moving my stuff into Allison's house because we were in the middle of doing this. And over the next couple weeks, I kept moving things over until Christmas time came around. And suddenly I got a text asking if we were coming over for Christmas because they missed me and loved me. I figured I'd accept and see how it goes. And since things have been mostly fine, they don't talk politics or religion as much. I wrote this script before the last incident happens, which was Memorial Day, where we were talking about the men who built America and how bad the Industrial Revolution was on people's health and the factories. And my stepdad goes, and that's why I think slavery is bullshit. So I just got up and left and said, hey, you're either going to stop talking about this. I understand it's your house, but when I'm there, you can either not talk about it and have a relationship with me, or you not getting a relationship with me. I respect it. It's their house, but I also respect my boundaries. It's America. You have the right to say whatever you want, even if it makes you look stupid. But, yeah, like I said, they stopped talking about politics and religion mostly, at least around me. So I try to be the bigger person and just deal with things as they come. I go over there, keep a smile on my face, try to keep the peace, and a big portion of that reasoning is because Allison and I had just started to get involved in my niece and nephew's life. My niece just turned 5, and my nephew is turning 3 in a few days. So, and we have a third one on the way, a third niece. Well, second niece, third niece/nephew. And it was difficult for her to start, and even worse to have that immediately pulled away as she was starting. But, you know, these kids have interesting parents as well, and their grandparents, my parents, are unique. So we do it mainly so these kids have a cool aunt and uncle who always get them nice gifts. Like, you can't see, but I have, I'll grab it real quick. We have a giant Hot Wheel set for my nephew for his birthday coming up. Give me 1 second. Okay. Oh, you can see my keyboard. And my younger brother, who's 17, he's turning 18, was too cool to play with these little kids. And he's also too cheap to give him anything, just like my aunt. So we try our best, and like I said, a third one's on its way. I wrote this one, we didn't know if it was a boy or girl. It's a girl, and we'll be there for them. Regardless of who they end up being, my goal is to be a supportive figure regardless. And that's because I was lacking that. And I wanted to make this video because I know I'm not the only one who has had an experience like this. I first wanted to do it when I saw a similar style video about leaving a whole different type of cult. About 5 months ago I wrote this. So even longer now. So almost 7-8 months ago. Whatever that video came out by Alyssa Grenfell, if I'm pronouncing her name right. I've also heard that some people pronounce her name wrong. I feel like I'm doing it. Forgive me. Where she talks about her experience leaving the Mormon church, which is a much different kind of cult than mine. And I figured it was a good opportunity for me to start writing and talking about my experiences in my own type of cult. And I might make more videos on it, like I said, but we'll see if I can even get this one out. I've been sitting on this script for months, and I'm just now getting to record it. Otherwise, that's essentially it. I would love to hear if anyone else who watches this has gone through something similar, whether it's MAGA related or religious or whatever type of cult or unfortunate experience you've had with a certain group of people, cult or not. If you feel comfortable sharing, just try to not be hateful. That's the goal here. We're trying to address this respectfully. As respectful as you can in today's political and economic climate. And so yeah, if you feel comfortable sharing, please do. I would love to read other experiences. And if you enjoyed this kind of video, just let me know with a comment, a like, a subscription maybe, or all three. And that's the best way to let me know. But for now, that's all. I'll see you guys next time.